Good day, viewers. In this segment I'll talk about ACK clocking, a behavior used by TCP. So sliding windows have a self-clocking kind of behavior called ACK clocking. In this segment I'll explain what ACK clocking is and why it's beneficial. First of all, just recall the basic features of a sliding window, and you'll see what I mean by an ACK clock. In a sliding window, every time we get the next ACK, normally this is the next in-order ACK, it advances the sliding window and allows for a new packet to be sent into the network, or a new segment to be sent into the network. So in effect, the ACKs are clocking out the data segments. This is what we mean by an ACK clock. You can see here packets going across regularly and ACKs coming back with the same spacing. And every time an ACK comes back, it's a strobe or a clock which allows the sender to release a new packet into the network, assuming there's no loss. This is. You might wonder what all the fuss is about. What I've described so far is simply how sliding windows work, after all. Well, let's look at an example to illustrate the benefits of ACK clocking. So consider what would happen in this network. In this network, I have two hosts that are connected to one another over a two-router network. Note that I've got a fast link on either side, and there's a slow link somewhere in the middle. This is going to be the bottleneck link. The host can't see this directly, but somewhere in the network there'll be a bottleneck which will slow their traffic down. The sender on the left sends a burst of packets into the network. So you can see there are 5 packets which are injected rapidly in succession. What will happen? Well, the segments, as they make their way through the network, they were sent in a burst over the fast link, but they can't go out that quickly over the slow link. This means that some of them will be buffered. Here they are, inside the buffer. And as they go over the slow link, they'll effectively be spaced out. Why is that? That's because if you had a fast link and you could send a packet every microsecond, say, on a link that was 1,000 times slower, you could only send the same packet, the same number of bits, every millisecond. So they'll have to sit around and wait for a lot longer. And the packet will be more spread out on the wire in some sense. So as we imagine these packets going further through the network, let's think about what happens. They've already gone from a burst to being spread out. That's what the slow link does. It spreads things out in time. Now, as they go back onto a fast network, however, this timing will not necessarily change. It can be unchanged. There might be one in the buffer here, but the other ones are going to be spread out in time with the same spacing. And every time one arrives here, we'll send an ACK back to the other side. So the ACKs, maybe I'll do it here, the ACKs that are coming down here are also going to have this kind of spacing. Here's a cleaner version of that. The key point is that the ACKs are maintaining this spread or spacing of the packets, and this spacing is coming from the slow link, the bottleneck link. Well, these ACKs are going to go through the network. As they go over this slow link, they will maintain their spacing. The slow link spreads packets apart until they're going slowly enough. But if they're already going slowly, they don't get to spread apart anymore. It's like a maximum speed limit. The fast links, you can drive fast. If you hit a slow link, you get slowed down to that speed limit. Well, if you keep that slow speed, when you come back around, you don't get slowed around anymore. So these ACKs are going to continue through this nice slow pace through the network to the other side. As they get to the other side, they will gate out new packets. But these new packets won't go out in a burst. They will come there spread out with the same timing. Let's look at a cleaned up picture of that. You can see here the ACKs arrive back here with this timing. At that timing, the ACK served as a clock which gated out a new packet. And these packets, these new packets or segments, were still spread with the timing. Now the amazing thing about this is that the segments are now being sent at just the right rate to go over the bottleneck link. They're going to fit, because the timing came from the bottleneck link, it's right. So that a new packet should arrive at the gateway, if there's not a lot of other interference from other flows, at roughly the right time that it can be sent out onto that link. So we now expect that there will be no big queue building here, and the packets will simply go out onto the slow link because they'll be arriving at about the right order. So in effect, the sender is now sending at about the bottleneck link. So there'll be no queuing, all without actually having anyone tell it what the capacity of the bottleneck link was. Well, this is the benefit of ACK clocking. ACK clocking here effectively will help the network to run with low levels of loss and low levels of delay. And it's working as follows. The network, when we sent a small burst, it smoothed out the burst of segments, and it smoothed them out so that they were spread at about the bottleneck rate. The ACK clock mechanism from the receiver all the way back through the sender transferred this same timing from the bottleneck link back to the sender. The sender then, because of the sliding window property, used that ACK timing to be able to send out data segments that weren't in one big burst. They were spread out at about just the right rate that they would go over the bottleneck link without a lot of queuing. So by using this ACK clock, we have nice smooth traffic that's well matched to the capacity of the network. That's what's amazing about ACK clocking. TCP uses a sliding window, and because of that ACK clocking, because of the value of this scheme. As I've said in a previous segment, TCP is going to use a sliding window to control how much traffic is in the network. TCP's version of this dynamic window is called a congestion window. And just like a flow control window, the sender, well, actually in this case it's the sender, whereas the flow control window is controlled by the receiver. This sliding window will be adjusted by the sender so that there won't be too many packets in the network. It will match the sender's capabilities to the network. ACK clocking is going to help us to do that. You might wonder how it's controlling the rate of what's in the network, since we're talking about a congestion window. Here's a key observation for you. The rate at which you send is related to the size of the congestion window, or the sliding window we're using in this case. With a sliding window of size W, you can send W segments every round trip time, assuming there's no loss. Well, our sliding window is size CWIN, so we get to send CWIN segments every round trip time. If you divide them, you'll find roughly the rate that's been supported by that window size. So TCP is going to send using only small bursts of segments, which the network will smooth out. This is how we'll keep our traffic nice and smooth and keep queues from building and congestion from forming. TCP is going to use these small bursts, and the network is going to smooth them out, and we'll use ACK clocking to keep everything smooth. And we'll do this using adjusting things and using only packet losses to signal. Anyhow, so this is ACK clocking. You now know what it is, and we'll see how we use it in subsequent segments.